The Wrong Door: How One Family's Nightmare Shook the Foundations of Government Immunity in America. Imagine you are fast asleep at home. The world outside is silent, and your family rests peacefully. Suddenly, without warning, the sound of splintering wood tears through the night. Your front door explodes inward. Bright flashes of light blind you. Explosions echo inside your house. Armed men in black rush in, shouting commands, dragging you to the ground, forcing you into handcuffs. You hear your wife screaming and see your child crying in terror as strangers point rifles at them. Then, within moments, everything stops. The officers realize they made a mistake, they attacked the wrong home. And when you try to seek justice, the government calmly tells you that you have no right to sue, that they cannot be held responsible for what they did to your family. This horrifying story is not a movie plot or a scene from a dystopian novel. It is the true experience of a family in suburban Atlanta, Georgia, and it led to one of the most important Supreme Court rulings in recent years, Martin v. United States. The case exposes a dark truth about how government power can sometimes operate without accountability, and how ordinary citizens must fight, often for years, to demand justice from the very institutions that are supposed to protect them. In 2017, an FBI agent named Lawrence Guerrera led a pre-dawn raid on a house believed to be the hiding place of dangerous gang members. The mission was supposed to be precise and coordinated. The target address was clearly listed in the operations documents, but Guerrera decided to use his own personal GPS device instead of the official system. That small act of convenience turned into a catastrophic mistake. The coordinates led his team to a completely different home, the home of Katrina Martin, her boyfriend, and her 7-year-old son. Without hesitation, the agents broke down the door, threw flashbang grenades, and stormed inside. They handcuffed the man, dragged Katrina out of bed, and pointed guns at her half-dressed body while her child cried in fear. Only after they began searching the house did one of the agents notice an envelope on the table with a different address. That was when they realized the unthinkable had happened. They had invaded the wrong home. The emotional damage was immediate and profound. The family's sense of safety was destroyed. The memory of that morning would follow them for years. But what came next was almost more shocking than the raid itself. When the family decided to sue the government for its mistake, the federal authorities responded that they could not be held liable. They argued that the FBI and its agents were protected under the law from being sued for such actions. This argument was based on a complex legal doctrine called the Federal Tort Claims Act, or FTCA. The FTCA is a law that, in theory, allows citizens to sue the federal government when government employees commit wrongful acts while performing their official duties. However, the FTCA comes with long lists of exceptions, situations where the government is immune from lawsuits. Two of these exceptions became central to the Martin case. The first is the intentional tort exception, which protects the government from being sued for deliberate actions like assault, battery, false arrest, or malicious prosecution. The second is the discretionary function exception, which shields officials from liability when their actions involve judgment or decision-making. Essentially, if an official makes a decision that can be described as discretionary, even if it leads to disaster, the government often cannot be sued. The FBI argued that the use of a personal GPS fell under this discretionary protection. They claimed that Agent Guerrera made a judgment call in choosing his navigation method, and that therefore, the entire raid was protected from legal consequences. To the average citizen, this might sound absurd. How could a mistake so reckless, storming the wrong home, be excused as a matter of discretion? Yet, in the complex world of American law, such technicalities have allowed countless cases of government overreach to go unpunished. The family's lawsuit was first heard in a federal district court in Georgia. The court sided with the government, agreeing that the FBI was immune from responsibility. The family appealed to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, hoping for a different outcome. But the appellate judges also ruled in favor of the government, repeating the same reasoning that the FTCA exceptions shielded the FBI. At this point, most people would have given up. After all, Few citizens have the strength, money, or patience to fight the US government in court. But Katrina Martin and her family refused to accept defeat. They took their case all the way to the highest court in the nation, the Supreme Court of the United States. When the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, legal experts across the country took notice. It was rare for the court to accept such a case, and even rarer for all 9 justices to agree on a single issue. But that is exactly what happened. In a stunning 9-0 unanimous ruling, the Supreme Court sided with the Martin family. Justice Neil Gorsuch, writing for the court, declared that the lower courts had misunderstood the law. The court clarified that the so-called law enforcement proviso of the FTCA modifies only the intentional tort exception. It does not erase all other exceptions or create total immunity for law enforcement actions. In simple terms, this means that federal agents cannot automatically hide behind discretion to escape accountability when they violate citizens' rights. The decision did not immediately grant the family financial compensation or final victory, but it reopened the door for justice. The Supreme Court vacated or nullified the 11th Circuit's ruling and sent the case back for reconsideration. The Department of Justice was ordered to file a supplemental brief explaining how the Supreme Court's decision would affect the case moving forward. Although the DOJ requested an extension due to a government shutdown, it is now required to respond before November 21. The case continues, but for the first time, the Martins stand on equal legal ground with the government that wronged them. The implications of this ruling go far beyond one family in Georgia. Across the United States, mistaken raids, wrongful arrests, and excessive force incidents have destroyed the lives of innocent people. Many of these cases involve gun owners, who are often targeted due to false tips or mistaken identity. When a homeowner, believing their family is under attack, exercises their right to self-defense, these encounters can turn deadly in seconds. Families have lost loved ones, police officers have been killed, and communities have been torn apart, all because of government negligence or poor training. Yet in many of these situations, victims find it almost impossible to sue the agencies responsible. The Martin ruling challenges that imbalance of power. It represents a small but critical victory for accountability. For too long, government agencies have operated with an attitude of invincibility. If a private citizen kicked down the wrong door, pointed a gun at a child, and terrorized a family, they would be arrested and charged immediately. But when federal agents do the same, they often walk away untouched. The Supreme Court's unanimous decision sends a clear message. The government is not above the law. Federal power must come with responsibility, and justice must apply equally to all. This case also highlights a deeper philosophical question that lies at the heart of democracy. What does it mean to have freedom if the government can act without consequence? The founding fathers of the United States designed a system based on checks and balances where no branch of power could dominate another. But when it comes to law enforcement and national security, the balance has often tilted dangerously toward unchecked authority. Citizens are expected to trust the system, yet that trust erodes when the system refuses to admit its mistakes. For people around the world, including Chinese readers observing from afar, the Martin case reveals both the strengths and weaknesses of American democracy. It shows the immense power of the US judiciary to correct injustice, even against its own government. But it also exposes how fragile individual rights can become when bureaucratic immunity overshadows accountability. The lesson is not limited to America. It is universal. Every nation faces the tension between security and liberty, between protecting citizens and respecting them. The question is how far a government should be allowed to go before it must answer for its action. The emotional impact of such government overreach cannot be overstated. For Katrina Martin and her family, the trauma of that night will never truly fade. Every sudden noise may remind them of that violent invasion. Every flash of light may trigger memories of chaos and fear. Beyond the physical damage to their home, the psychological scars remain a lasting reminder that those who are supposed to protect can also destroy. Yet, from this darkness comes a sliver of hope. The Supreme Court's decision represents a step toward restoring balance. It empowers ordinary citizens to demand justice Even when facing the most powerful institution in the country, it signals to law enforcement agencies that they must act carefully, that discretion does not mean impunity, and that mistakes, when made, must be acknowledged and corrected. Still, more must be done. Legal scholars suggest several solutions to prevent such tragedies from repeating. First, law enforcement agencies should implement stricter protocols for verifying addresses and intelligence before raids. Technology should never replace double-checking human judgment. Second, officers must receive better training on accountability and civil rights, understanding that their badges do not grant unlimited authority. Third, Congress should review and clarify the exceptions within the FTCA, ensuring that they cannot be twisted into shields for government negligence. Lastly, public awareness is essential. The more citizens understand their rights and the limits of government power, the harder it becomes for institutions to abuse those powers in silence. The Martin case is a story of tragedy, courage, and slow justice. It began with a door being broken and a family being shattered, but it may end with a legal precedent that protects thousands of others. It reminds us that freedom is not something granted once and kept forever. It must be defended constantly, sometimes even against the very hands that claim to safeguard it. When the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 in favor of the Martins, it sent a powerful signal, not just across the United States, but to the entire world. Accountability is not optional. The government must answer for its actions, even when those actions come wrapped in the authority of law enforcement. This ruling may not erase the trauma of that night, but it restores a piece of faith in justice. It proves that even when power tries to hide behind legal walls, truth and persistence can break through. The story of Martin v. United States will continue to unfold in the courts. The DOJ will file its response, the 11th Circuit will reconsider its ruling, and the family will keep fighting. But no matter how the next chapter ends, this case will stand as a warning, a reminder that unchecked power, no matter how noble its intentions, can lead to devastating consequences. It shows that vigilance, transparency, and courage are the true guardians of a free society. As citizens, whether in America, China, or anywhere else, we must remember the lesson of this case. Power must always be watched. Authority must always be questioned. Justice must always remain within reach of the ordinary person. Because once fear replaces accountability, freedom becomes an illusion. And once the door to your home can be broken by mistake, it is not only the wood that shatters it, it is the very trust that holds a nation together.